Thank you everyone for joining, and glad to have the OGs in this space with me. So I'll start off with a brief round of introductions. So I had CoinSwitch Ventures, which is like the corporate VC arm for CoinSwitch, focusing on pre-seed, seed rounds for Indian Web3 companies. Over to you, Sharan.
Hi, my name is Sharan. I run PYOR, which is basically a blockchain data analytics company focused on institutions, and BrownRice Capital, which is a platform for the institutions and ultra HNIs to invest in crypto compliantly in India.
Hi guys, I'm Edul. I'm the founder and CEO of Mudrex. We are a crypto investing platform. We've been going on for the last 6 odd years, have close to about 1 million users, and growing and scaling rapidly. We offer our services to users in India and Europe. We are a registered virtual asset service provider in both of these jurisdictions and now growing up.
So the topic for discussion is around adoption and challenges in India. I think firstly I want to highlight that as per the latest chain analysis report, India is the leading country in terms of crypto adoption. I want to get your take on what do you think about the report, firstly, and like secondly, like what makes India so special in terms of being so open-armedly accepting crypto as an asset class.
Yeah, so I can start off, Sharan, if you want. So. 2-3 points if you look at that report. Firstly, there are some numbers quoted which just seem too large to be true. Having said that, directionally what it talks about is correct. Because it's not just the chain analysis report. If you look at other data, like for example, Google search trends for Bitcoin and compare that in India versus other countries, you'll see that India almost always comes in number 1, number 2, number 1, number 2, right? And the same thing is true for a bunch of other directional pathways in which you can understand what the adoption looks like. And that adoption, of course, has been growing since some time. Of course, early on it started with some dev interest, which led to some speculation interest, which has then grown into now just much more dev interest. And like, for example, we got a booth outside on Sabre, right? And a lot of people come and ask us a very simple question, I am a developer who is building in crypto. I get paid salary in USDC. How do I convert it to INR, right? Like, so a lot of those use cases are there and which are immense and large. So the adoption is there at that level, but the adoption is also there from the users wanting to invest, add value, grow their wealth in crypto over the longer run. That also continues with us on Mudrex.
I think very interestingly, just some time back, I was talking to somebody who's not from crypto, who happened to just walk into the conference. And the first thing they came and told me is like, Sharan, this is probably the conference, and they go to a lot of conferences which are non-crypto, that this is probably the only conference where I see so many young people, right? And I think that has a huge role of the population in India, like the age group in India has a huge role to play here. Because apart from like what Edul just said, like, people wanted to buy crypto and invest in crypto, but the larger purpose here seems to be the fact that there's more technological understanding of the space. A lot of people here want to build products, ship it to the world, and I think this is truly India's moment in doing that. And I think that is what's primarily more exciting to me, because we're anyways like 1 billion people, like there are only 2 countries that can say that, right? So I'm not very, I'm very confident that we'll definitely pick up on the investing side of things, but what I'm super bullish on is the fact that we're building so much, and you running an ecosystem fund would know this much better than I do.
No doubt on that. Like, and again, like in the bear market, last 1 year, I've talked to more than 350 startups in this space, in like building out of India. And like we have, I think, the 3rd largest developer strength, like more than 10,000 Web3 devs already working in the space. We will see like a big chunk of that in ETH India, which is like probably the biggest hackathon in the world. So that brings me to my next question. Like, on the development side, a lot of things are happening, but retail usage is mostly for speculative trading, or like they want to like, basically make great returns by investing in crypto. Do you think that's going to change with time? Do we see like more real world use cases or like, consumer facing dApps gain traction?
No, so I think, of course, people will want to invest. It's an asset class that's growing. That happens with every asset class. So I don't think the investment use cases will ever grow, because everyone wants wealth in their lives, right? They want to create wealth and value for their own selves and grow and scale that up. So I don't think that use case will go. But what will definitely happen is that more will happen. Welcome, Ajeet.
Please continue.
Yeah, let me just reorient myself. Yeah, so as I was saying, the investment use case will continue, but what will increase is that slowly and steadily as acceptance grows, adoption grows, and there are a bunch of challenges that we'll discuss in some time, as that gets resolved, people will start using the technology on the back end, making it seamless and just helping things run smooth in a smooth fashion where the normal retail user will actually not even know that they're using crypto or blockchain on the back end to service something.
Good. I'll just take a break and introduce Ajeet sir as well. Thank you for joining us. I know you're running a little late, but please do introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, so my name is Ajeet. My best introduction is the guy who showed up late, because that is my most current designation. I have worked in the startup space now since the year 93. Exited my first venture to Intel Capital, the VC arm of Intel, in the year 2000. Ran another venture which ran into the global economic crisis of 2008. Got into crypto blockchain VC in the mid-2010s. 2018, I became CEO of a large crypto exchange in India, took them global. And since 20, I have been working with all of us in this room, or several of us in this room, helping Web3 startups grow. Thanks.
Thank you, Ajeet sir. And so basically, I'll probably pass on the question to Sharan. I was just discussing on how retail adoption has been the primary driver in India. Now, are we seeing institutions also get interested in the space? And again, globally, that has already started happening. Macro hedge funds want to get some kind of Bitcoin exposure. Because you have just started BrownRice, any take or any insights that you can provide?
I think for institutions across the world, the most common indicator for them to get and jump into this is regulatory direction, right? India for the longest time lagged that direction because we wake up every morning and all of us would relate to this ki aaj band hoga, kal band hoga, right? And today with the kind of statements that's been coming out in the parliament, the kind of questions being asked, the kind of responses that we're seeing, the kind of report that came out with the FIU, it kind of shows that there seems to be a positive direction in terms of how regulations are looking at, and that definitely institutions are taking a look at that. So we get a lot of questions around oh, what's happening? What is this report? What is FIU? How are you registering with all of that? So that's one part of it that seems to be picking up steam there. The second part that a lot of institutions are not getting into it is that they really, to be honest, do not know how to evaluate crypto, right? They'll be how do I decide what is Ethereum doing? How do I even evaluate that? The word TVL is the second language here, but the word TVL does not exist in traditional finance, and they don't understand this. That's why we built PYOR first, because it's a data company. We help institutions understand how to evaluate blockchains. And now that they have a better understanding of that, there have been a lot of interest that we are seeing, at least. We're talking to a lot of large family offices to kind of get them started on crypto.
Some allocation. Makes sense. And again, the biggest, I think, sponsor for the space is going to be BlackRock. If BlackRock is buying Bitcoin, what is stopping you? My question next to Ajeet sir, I think you joined us late. Your take on, regulatory space, and you think that is the biggest challenge for adoption in India? Or are there other, factors to consider as well?
So I think that at a personal level, it has been my biggest pain. Okay, having said that, and answering your question as well as reacting to what Sharan said, I will draw an analogy with the oil and gas industry. Who is the consumer of the oil and gas industry? It could be you, the guy who drives the taxi, because they consume petroleum. It could be the lady in the house who is using a cylinder of gas, or it could be somebody trading in crude oil futures on the London Stock Exchange. All of them are different components, so you cannot really, I think we are now as an industry grown up enough to not have to use a broad brush and say crypto or Web3. So my hurdle in adoption, the most painful one is regulatory, but the biggest one is not regulatory, right? The biggest one, frankly, is that some of us, maybe even all of us, but I have come late, so I'm trying to be a little modest, actually are Web3 folks building for Web3 folks. At least till the bull market of 2021, this was true. Since then, in the bear market, I have seen a lot of great green shoots. Probably the other speakers on the stage, you yourself are part of that. But I think that what we have done is we have tried to optimize a very small industry rather than focus on the growth of the industry. And according to me, this is the single largest problem. The mood gets spoiled because of the regulatory issues, which I have had a lot of experience in dealing with.
Totally agree with that. And on the other point, like offshoots, green offshoots are definitely happening. And I think the next cycle will see a lot of consumer-facing dApps come to reality. I'll post this to Edul next. Like basically, as a person who runs like a crypto platform, any insights that you can share on retail adoption? And I say this because we just did a report, the Web3 industry landscape report, and education seems to be lacking amongst the retail user. If you see the top 5 traded coins or the top 5 held coins, SHIB and Doge are always there for the last 3 years. So you think it is a problem of education with the retail investors as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like the most common advice that people get before they invest is that you should do your own research, right? सब बोलते हैं कि you should do your own research, no one tells them how. And that's the big problem. Because if you try and understand or try to get information to make the choice of buying and selling, all of that is so fragmented and you don't know what is right and what is wrong. And we've been actually putting in a lot of effort in this since the last 3-4 years now. We started off with something called as Satoshi School, which was a repository where you can read, learn, understand about not only crypto, but investing, about individual tokens, and so on and so forth. That was the first attempt. The second attempt was us launching something called as Satoshi GPT, which was an AI-powered bot that does this exact same thing, but in a conversational way. So it's more useful and it's empowered by and enriched by real-time data. And then the latest attempt to do this is launch something called as Mudrex Insights, which is, we said that people don't know where to go and do research, so might as well us get all of that, put that in a place and compress it and put in. But this is information and knowledge and education before someone needs before they invest. A very similar lack of knowledge and information is also there before someone becomes a dev, right? Ki just understanding ki ghusna kaise hai, what is the community, how do you solve for it, all of that is difficult. And it's also changing very rapidly. So, for example, we are building on the Starknet ecosystem. We are building a product over there called as Jedi Swap, which is an exchange. Now, Starknet is moving from one language to another. Everything is different. So, just the rate at which the ecosystem is growing is, of course, too quick. So, you need to always be up there. So, that's there.
Totally agree. And like as somebody who's been active in the space for 5 years, like there's not a dull week in crypto. Like every week you get to know some new developments and things move at like breakneck speed. Ajeet sir, next question probably for you. In terms of usage again, like do you see, since you also interact with a lot of startups, are you seeing those consumer-facing dApps that will probably abstract the Web3 element behind and gain like your sort of mainstream Web2 adoption?
So here's the thing, the consumer-facing tabs have been all the while. It was just which consumer, like, Axie Infinity was a consumer-facing app, come play my game. The second part you said is very important. What has happened is that there has not yet been a talk or a panel which did not throw in some nice masala of technology. Because we somehow are all nerds who can't get over it, right? So if somehow we could just not talk about it, talk about how Vijay Shekhar Sharma talks about Paytm. He never talks about the distributed mirror server architecture that he must have somewhere behind. He will never talk about that because he knows that the guy on the street will run away. They just want to know, oh, I have a speaker box now on my banana cart, which will say the thing. I think that abstraction has not just to be at a mere wallet abstraction level. I think that it has to be at a technology abstraction level. It has to be at a platform abstraction level. It has to be, okay, I want to book a cab. What do I do? That age-old thing about, can my grandmother use it? And I don't know why they always leave grandfathers out of it. But still, I think that really is the true test. And the way to do that, all of us can just, raise our hand and swear that we will stop talking of the underlying technology when we are dealing with common people, that is people who are not technological people, and focus on what this achieves. The moment that mindset change happens, see, we are forcing ourselves to do that, but we will still talk about, a certain transactions per second or an L1, L2, etc., etc. We can't resist it. Let us stop resisting it. And yes, the answer to your question, in a very big way, I feel that the upcoming cycle, I'm going to arrogate myself the right of calling it a super cycle, is going to be about adoption. Otherwise, we die, as in it's simply that.
We were actually discussing this exact same point in the green room, right, Piche? People need to stop adding that they are a blockchain company in their description. Just talk about the problem they solve and not they solve it through blockchain. It actually just confuses people more.
Sharan, your thoughts on this, because you've also been with CoinSwitch. Do people really care? Not your keys, not your crypto. Is that like what the end user wants in his user journey?
I think we grew up in a generation that always relied on forgot password, right? And it just worked fine. And nobody cared about data. Then suddenly one day Signal came and everybody was scared and everybody suddenly deleted. We're all back now. But I think it's a learning in progress. It's a new thing. People are now getting used to the idea that you need to keep your crypto with you, especially on the investment side. Because when you buy equity, you never really get scared of the fact that your equity is going to get stolen, right? Your stocks are going to get stolen. That thought never really comes to you. But when we tell people that, oh, your crypto can get stolen, it suddenly creates that kind of fear in their mind. But I think that's one space I feel that a lot of good work has to be done, because even today, like Ledger does a good job, but I think it still can get much better in terms of how you can access your crypto without keeping the key with you and still have the good access to that. So that's there, and I completely agree with whatever both of them had to say about it. The fact that we have to stop really really focus on the outcome of what your application is supposed to do, then talk about all the fancy tech that went behind building that, because nobody cares.
And on similar lines, basically there is adoption happening even on the TradFi and government side, but that's mostly happening on private blockchains. So any take on that? Can we separate crypto from blockchain and Web3? Ajeet sir, I'll start off with you.
Very interestingly, when I would sit in the Ministry of Finance, right? This, I'm telling you, year was 2019. Okay, they would love blockchain as long as we didn't say the C word. Right? We don't say C, we say the B word. And the reason for that was that companies, and I don't say this in any positive or negative way, like KPMG, etc., were pitching blockchain solutions to them, and they clearly were far more respectable than we were, where we are trying to create funny money. So very simply, here's the deal. Unless the two contradictory forces are working here, there is one part of crypto industry which is trying to make us more like the traditional guys, going so far as to say that each app should have its own blockchain, thereby losing a significant character of decentralization in public blockchains. You should have your own blockchain, and we should do traditional finance but do the same thing on the blockchain paradigm, which means bring in new features into an existing paradigm. The other one, which is what I'm more excited about but also is much more difficult, is to say, listen, blockchain did not come just to do what was being done a little better. It has to be able to do things which were not possible before. And I was around when the personal computer came. That's how old I am. And first, when the personal computer came in the office, it was used to write books of account, and at home it was used to play games which were anyway available as arcade games like Space Invader, Car Racing, Flight Simulator. And a lot of people felt, oh, this is what a computer is. But only when that started changing dramatically and we started doing things which were unimaginable, I think that is what I am really here for.
That chasm, we have to cross that chasm where it becomes adding value to what existing systems can do. Probably one example we were discussing, Edul, in the green room is DigiYatra. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I don't know, a lot of people probably don't know this, but DigiYatra at the back end uses blockchain to share data, and that's how all of that seamlessly gets shared with the airlines, with the airports, and then all of it also gets auto-deleted because it's there. It's
so I think we will see more use cases like that where something is working as a blockchain in the background, but the user doesn't know.
Yeah, so let's, going back, the value that it adds is threefold. On the one fold, there is just this identity information available digitally shareable. The second part is that identity information is shareable in the format of permissions. So give XYZ to some person, ABC to some person. And then thirdly, it's about sharing this with a bunch of people who can collaboratively come and put in. For example, the RBI started something called as a CKYC some time back, where they say that all entities that work with RBI need to update the CKYC, which was kind of a central repository information about one user. Now, examples like these are many, where the centralized setups can be replaced with infrastructures like what is built for DigiYatra, right? So that identity layer is the first layer, I think, that gets solved. And then identity se link hote hain asset ownership and then proof of ownership, which then get resolved automatically once you solve for the identity.
Sharan, your take on this topic?
I think this was 2016, 17, when there was this whole movement of blockchain, not crypto happening, right? And my favorite activity used to go to corporates and tell them why they don't need blockchain, right? Because they wanted to force fit. There was a budget. So they had like 10 people, and now they wanted to put blockchain into something without much idea, and then they would be like, okay. But see, the thing is this, right? Blockchain does a couple of things. It's supposed to be immutable, uncensorable, right? Trustlessness. If these are the problems that your problem statement has, use a blockchain. If that is not the problem, then use a distributed ledger, which a lot of people think is blockchain. I mean, there's no private blockchain, it's a distributed ledger, right? So, I mean, for me, it's just like plain vanilla that way.
Let me just add something very interesting. You know, who you talked about blockchain versus crypto in 2016, 17, it continued all the way up to 19. If I go back like 15 years from then, that means 20 years from now, cloud computing had come up. And it was the buzzword, right? And a lot of organizations would go to IT providers and say, set up a cloud in my office, right? Basically giving up the public cloud and putting a completely private cloud. And we were like, that won't be very different from what you're doing. Where did it settle finally? It eventually settled in most implementations being a hybrid implementation, where for a lot of stuff you use the backbone, which is like an AWS or whatever, but for some of this stuff, even for regulatory reasons, you are storing it here, right? It is possible that because of our track record of doing that, that the blockchain may also be likewise.
Maybe at least blockchain has crossed that phase. Now probably AI is there. Like, let's put AI in this app. On the next question is like more on the capital side of things, and coming from ventures, I think that's a big gap in the India ecosystem. And also I think in terms of adoption, it will really help if like, more global capital sees the kind of startups that are being built here. Any thoughts or takes on that? Considering like Sharan, you're running a startup, Ajeet sir, you do mentor so many startups, and Edul, like I'm sure like you also talk to a lot of investors. So you think that Indian founders are at a back foot? Do you think they need more like visibility, or what is lacking basically?
No, so I think capital will always help accelerate growth, and capital always helps accelerate new ideas come to the front. And with venture capital, the problem statement to solve for is that what all such ideas can you back so that they are able to grow and scale up? Of course, that requires that participation to come in, and we are very, very early in the entire system as well. It will take time, but there are companies like Hashed that are doing it, and there are many other folks that are trying to do it. Of course, it can be accelerated, and of course, more money is always welcome because there are many, many, many more builders out there. Like last year, ETH India was insanely large. I expect it to be larger this time, considering everything that I'm hearing about it. And if there are just so many people wanting to hack and build things out, then you, of course, want people to back these ideas to grow, right?
I think I mean, probably was really small, but at the time when like the whole startup thing took off in India, the first thing you would do is that take a plane ticket to US, right? Because that's where all the capital was. And that's changing now because that really helps now that a lot of capital is now coming to India as well. And like my good friend Akshay Bedi once very famously said, crypto, the decentralization is the new H-1B visa, right? So that has really enabled people to build applications sitting here, right? Like why would a guy sitting in Pune building DAB want to go all the way to US and then pay that kind of crazy amount of rent and build it? There's no point in doing that, right? So, and the second fact is that this is where the talent is, right? The only difference that was happening was that back then also the talent was here, but the talent had to take a plane, go to US, sit in Silicon Valley, eat burgers that they don't like, and build. Now I'm saying sit here, go to Cafe Rameshwaram, eat that and build it, right? And that capital really helps in that direction.
Three very quick points. You know, since I was into angel investing since 1998, got into it formally VC angel space in 2011, we always used to have this slogan that Indian venture capitalists behave like US private equity player. Indian angel investors behave like US venture capital player because of being risk averse. So I'm going to actually just talk to only the very early stage founders here, as opposed to second time founders, as opposed to people who have even raised a seed round. Just 3-4 very quick things to keep in mind. Number one, when choosing what to build, please don't try to find out what will get funded. Even if you get the answer to that, which by the way is very difficult to get, by the time you'll go there, it'll have changed. So please ignore the VCs, ignore the angel investors. Instead focus on what will get adopted, what will get profitable, what will create value. Point number 2 is that when you are going to deal with investors, they are not really trying to see how cool your technology is, they are trying to make an ROI. Which to some extent is correlated with what your thinking is as a founder, but to some extent is not. Because the problem they are solving is how to make themselves richer. Right? You may be solving a similar problem or a related problem. So just be careful that you are building for your consumer If you can distinguish between customer and consumer, I would say not even for customer. You're building for your consumer, not for your customer to some extent, but definitely not for your investors. Take that approach, investors will chase you.
Very well put, very well put. And finally, like I think on the closing front, I just want to like highlight to the audience that India has less than 10, I think the number is 10 crore, less than 10 crore demat accounts, but we have like more than around like double of that in terms of C5 users already. So I want to do a predictions game. Like how do you see that space evolving in 1 year? We are also entering the bull market. So if you have any thoughts on like,
I have a question. You said 10 crore demat accounts.
Less than 10 crore.
Less than 10 crore. So let's call it about 7-8% of the population.
Yep.
And what was double of that?
Like let's say 14 CR. 14,
what is 14 CR?
14 crore centralized exchanges. Like number of users on CoinSwitch.
So there are far more intelligent people sitting on this audience, but in this stage. But I feel there is double counting in that.
Okay.
I think that the 14 crore is just a sum total of all the exchanges, and there are a lot of Indians who might be on 7 exchanges. So that person has been counted 7 times. And I'll tell you where this comes from. In 2018, when we filed a case against RBI, in the Supreme Court, RBI came and said, "Show me the victim. You guys are exchanges. You are saying it is hurting. Show me the victim. There's no victim in the audience." So we were actually to do a proper methodical audited search of how many crypto investors are there in India. This would be around August, September of 18, and the number was 55 lakhs, when the stated number was 3 crores.
Got it.
Right, so when we actually went PAN card by PAN card, because it's in Supreme Court. So I think in my completely irresponsible guess, the real number of distinct users might be close to 3 crores, but still very sizable compared to demat.
Which has been around for like
forever.
Decades, and like crypto as an asset class, probably last 5 years we've seen like a real.
Also,
uptick.
many people have multiple demat accounts.
Yes.
So if there are like 7-8 crore demat accounts, that also has double counting, right? So I think that they have become now comparable, even if there's a 1:2 ratio at worst, but it's probably not even that. I have a feeling that if you look at April of 2020, in that 1 month, the number of new accounts opened on exchanges, not the number of new people, was equal to all the accounts opened till March 20. That means from 16 to 20. So what happened in 4 years happened in 1 month, because January 20, the Supreme Court verdict came, people took time to gear up, and in April, it was the greatest month we have seen in a delta of percentage. The same thing is going to happen again. There is going to be another month, April 24. I should not be hazarding such dangerous, irresponsible guesses. Let's say April 25, I don't know, somewhere in between this time and that, when the whole world is saying I am Bitcoin ETFing on spot in the US or whatever is the driver, I expect another such super month to come, which means if we are X today, whatever is 3 crore, 4 crore, we get that many more. As long as exchanges have the bandwidth to actually sign them on.
We are gearing up for that. Like any takes on, by you guys, like in terms of number of users as well, I would say another guesstimate could be the audience. Like do you think next year IBW is going to be double this size?
Yeah, easily double this size. 2.5 is a number that we were discussing outside, right? So it gets 2.5 times bigger. That's what we expect next time as well.
The audience standing outside will double in size. The ones who are inside are the ones who are here tired after lunch.
I think like year on year now that the events happen here, I was just joking and telling someone that we should probably buy Sheraton stocks. You know, for the number of conferences happening in this hotel, the number has just been increasing. But my whole thing is that I'm sometimes also a little worried about a lot of people signing up on exchanges and buying crypto, right? Because the gatekeeping isn't done so well yet. So that, like, it's different when someone says, I've downloaded an app to play a game, or I've downloaded an app, a Web3 app that does something. That's still fine for me. But sometimes with the exchange part, I get a little worried, because then what are you buying? And then there's this whole responsibility part that has to kick in. And like, we're pretty senior people here, right? We've been running exchanges and businesses for a while. And I think we need to collectively come out and figure that part out. So I'm generally not the guy who goes out and says, oh, so many people are coming up. That's great. I'm a little bit more skeptical about this whole thing. That, you know, this needs to happen at a good pace. People really need to understand.
Sharan, if you set up the crypto Aam Aadmi Party,
yes,
and you get like 15 crore people to vote for you, you will be Prime Minister.
Yeah?
No, so I think just adding all to that part, instead of just talking about users or demat accounts or something of that sort, maybe let's just talk about how many people do meaningfully participate? And because even in the last time, what a lot of users came in were people who were coming in with, let's say, 100 rupees, 50 rupees, 500 rupees, just want to figure out, or for airdrops, right? Or for, some rewards that were being shared during IPL times and so on and so forth, right? So a lot of the mass market was that gave people a taste. And what at least I am seeing when we have conversations with our users this time is that their questions are just way more refined and just much more mature, which is the kind of questions that people will ask when they are, let's say, investing in a particular stock. And that's where I think the large change, it's not just the number of people who are coming in, it's just the mindset that they are coming in as well. And what are they looking for from this? And that's, I think, the big change that I expect to happen. As Ajeet sir said sometime, it's like we are talking about adoption, right? This next super cycle is about adoption. It's not just adoption from actual use cases. It's this kind of sort of mental adoption of what this asset class is and what it's going to do for you.
Great, guys. And I'll just wrap up on that. Basically, we are entering the next cycle. Hopefully less FOMO, like more informed decision making. And we are not waiting for the institutions anymore. They're already here. Hoping to see 2.5x or 3x the crowd at next IBW. Thank you.